Welcome to episode 10 of BM by BM, Books and Movies, with Bailey and
Maxie.
Yes. And this episode is about
Soylent Green.
Green.
It's a good one. It's a really good one. We're glad that you're joining us tonight. To those of you who are listening to this episode many years in the future, our apologies that this is the best you could find from 2020. But it's going to be great. You're going to enjoy our dissection of this classic movie. To begin with, Soylent Green stars the incomparable Charlton Heston.
Yes.
And this movie is set, interestingly, Mrs. Bailey, tell them what year.
2 years from now.
Yeah, 2022. And I started watching the movie. It's like, oh, this is the future. This is the immediate future. What will life be like? And you know what freaked me out kind of hard is at the beginning of this film, the film is set in New York in 2022. New York population 44 million.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wait, no, 22 million. I think.
No, I think you're right. I think it's 40.
Is it 44?
Yeah.
So some big number like that.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that really kind of jarred me a little bit seeing that is the same day that I started watching it last week. I read an article about projections for largest cities in the world in, I want to say by 2100. So wow. 80 years from now. And the projections were that, this is total tangent, sorry.
No.
All three projected largest cities in the world would be larger than that. The projection was that Lagos, the city where my parents live, which is currently predicted, I had already heard, by 2050 to be the third largest city in the world. By 2100, this particular article said, would be the largest city of the world with, catch this, 88 million people. You know, and they're like, how do you even put how's that even still a city when you have 88 million? Anyway.
Yeah. Total
tangent, but yes. Some of the issues that Soylent Green deals with were addressed in this article. Like, how do you even manage and maintain, order and sustain a city that large? Anyway, back to the show.
No, that's true. And in the film, the movie is based on a book, which we are not talking about. We are focusing mainly on the film with Charlton Heston, who is always sweaty in this film, which I feel like he has that going on for him. That's his life.
Yes.
But the film definitely addresses population, people in the streets. Riot control is normal for police to have to do every day while they hand out food rations, or they manage the exchange where different types of Soylent are sold. So it is a lot of crowd control. It is a lot of stormtroopers kind of basically managing people. It seems like crime is very normal in Soylent Green. And one of the things that I pointed out, I didn't think that Charlton Heston's character is Thorn. And I thought Thorn wasn't necessarily on the by and by, but my husband said that he was opportunistic.
Right.
For example, when he goes to a crime scene, he comes home with bourbon, beef. Yes. Because why wouldn't you raid the fridge of someone who was just murdered in their own home?
And brazenly walk out with all of that stuff with the security guard and the live-in mistress watching you do it, and there's no mention of what you're doing and no discussion. And he admitted it to his boss the next day. Like, I, as he said, everything I could lay my hands on. Yeah.
So it doesn't seem like there are any good guys. It seems like not that there's evil everywhere, but just that everybody's had a hard life and people people don't remember what life was like. What is his name? Edward G. Robinson plays an older guy who's basically, shout out to librarians. He's basically a librarian. He uses all of his research to help Thorne crack cases and track down suspects. And so Saul is his name. And he talks about how in my day you could buy fresh lettuce and things weren't rationed. And he talks about all the ways that the planet used to look before it's just this overgrown urban area of New York. So that's Saul. He's really sweet. They love each other. I love seeing Charlton Heston interact with his little sidekick. So that was really sweet.
Now they're flatmates, right? They live in the same apartment. Is that right?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, and so there is a curfew, a daily curfew, and you're not allowed to be out of doors after a certain time. I missed the time.
I don't remember. It's after dark.
Right. Unless you're on official business, which he does have official business. But when he on his way in and out of his apartment building, the stairs are so crowded with people sleeping on the stairs, let alone the landings, etc., that it is, he has a very hard time avoiding stepping on them or kicking them in their sleep as he comes and goes from his apartment. So that kind of deprivation is rampant there, and like you say, people are used to it. So talk a little bit about the whole Soylent situation. What is a Soylent?
A dirty diaper that I just changed. Thank you. So Soylent is the food that's rationed out. You can get it through government rations, or you can buy it at an open air market called the Exchange. But it's one of the major forms of food that they have. Food in Soylent Green is rationed to the extreme, like not even K rations, but they show groceries at one point, and this lady, that was something else I had a question about, which I didn't research. There's one point in the movie where this lady comes out and she yells at the mob, and she says that she had been standing in line all day and she only got half a kilo.
Yes.
So I'm guessing either
we switched to Matrix,
or maybe the book was written in the UK. I don't know. Or
I think that was a hidden message to say, well, at least we finally made the metric system. There's a silver lining.
So there are different types of Soylents, and the film opens with a commercial on the TV of Soylent Red, Soylent Yellow, and then new Soylent Green that's made from plankton. So,
very nice.
Yes.
So in this context, the protagonist Thorne is a detective, so he is investigating a murder that takes place. And by the way, it turns out, well, it's in the film, and it's a political assassination. But through the course of his job, he is also assigned to riot control, which you mentioned earlier. And the police know that there will be a riot during food distribution, because that's what happens when food distribution happens, and the riot
run out.
And they have run out, because they inevitably run out because they don't have enough food. And it's not as if they are feeding people who can't afford food. There is no other food. There's not an availability of food. And in fact, there's an interesting scene where the concubine, or I said earlier, live-in mistress of
Cheryl.
man that was assassinated goes to the market, and so she's buying, and it's clear that there's extravagant wealth involved, and she is splurging on 2 apples, and not a head of lettuce, but a few leaves of lettuce. And the extremely lavish item that she buys is one steak, like one piece of beef. So this really interesting that there's still this notion of the haves and the have-nots, but even the haves are grossly deprived compared to right now. There's a great deal of food insecurity in our country, which is in itself an abomination, but there's no shortage of actual food in this country.
Right.
So it's just very interesting to see that, where the population has grown to the point where there is literally not enough food for everybody.
Right. And Simonson is the name, I believe, of the guy who gets assassinated. So his bodyguard, and I can't remember the actor's name, but he's played by the guy who was the rifleman on TV for like lots of years in country western. So anyway, his bodyguard has also a girlfriend. And one of the things that kind of tells Charlton Heston something's wrong is that he gets a spoon from her apartment. And later on, Saul tells him, oh, those are strawberries, which are like $125 a jar.
Yeah.
So she was just like sitting there eating strawberry jam.
Yeah. Because she is rich and can do it. I don't know if you want to talk about this, but the way the young ladies are referred to in the book, Thorn and others.
At one point, he talks to her and says that she's furniture.
He addresses her as furniture.
Yeah. And she says, don't talk to... Well, of course, she says it in like Disney princess voice. Like, please don't talk to me like that.
Yeah. And
because these are all 70s women who cannot fight for themselves. Also, how have we not addressed yet? I believe it's Violet Beauregard's dad from Willy Wonka or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Did you make that connection?
Which one's he?
Charlie or Charles, who's like the building manager of Simonson's apartment.
Oh, yeah. No, I did.
Violet,
yes.
You're turning Violet.
Yes.
So at one point, he is the building manager. He comes in and he starts beating up all these women.
Right.
They don't fight back. Thankfully, Charlton Heston is there helping himself to Cheryl. And he comes in and then nothing happens. He doesn't really mess up Charlie at all. But the girls are crying because Cheryl was saying that she didn't want to be alone because her boyfriend was killed in the apartment, which she still stays in the apartment because it's paid for.
Furniture.
Like
because
basically,
she's furniture.
Later on, a guy moves in and he decides he wants to keep her, so she can't continue her relationship with Thorne.
Right.
But I will say, for this film, like the only time that you see bright colors is on the women. Every guy is dressed in muted colors.
Right.
All the scenery is very muted. I think they use some sort of filter to make it like green when they're at the market. Mm-hmm. All the poor people are, of course, in muted colors, but anyone who's in bright colors is a concubine, basically.
Yeah. Interesting.
Very interesting.
So, there's another piece there as part of the investigation. Charlton Thorne makes his way to a church, and he speaks to a priest there who is it's as if he's about out of his mind. So, as I'm saying this, I think it's because the weight of what he's been told is too much. But
Mhm.
at first, Thorne doesn't realize that it's almost as if he thinks the priest has worked himself into
Mhm.
a haze. I'm like, you don't. Yes, but if the population of the city is 44 million, surely you've burned yourself out before this point. Anyway,
Right.
very interesting. And then
Yes.
just I think there's more to explore there about the setting of the church itself,
Ooh,
because
yes.
near the end of the story, Thorne is chased into that same church and has a shootout and a knife fight with one of the villains. Oh, one of whom is the bodyguard. But it's just really interesting to me at that point and at other points. So you mentioned not fighting back. So when that happened, the church is crammed full of people who were sleeping on the floors and on bunk beds. And no
Yes.
one did a single thing to try to stop this, even though several people were shot and killed by stray bullets.
Right.
And flashback to the riots in the market, the scoops came, which are
Yeah.
dump trucks with front end loaders that literally scoop people up and dump them into the back, to take them where? We don't want to spoil the end of the movie, but it's even there. So this is a marketplace full of a massive crowd of people. Yes, there's riot police there, but no one does anything to attempt. I mean, there's one driver in the truck. No one does anything to try to disrupt
Mhm.
this machine that is
Even though there are armed people with guns, maybe
right.
even silencers on them shooting in the
Right.
marketplace. Yeah.
So just really interesting, the level of implied conditioning maybe, or acceptance of their society, that it doesn't occur to anybody to fight back. It doesn't occur to the girls, doesn't occur to the folks in the church, it doesn't occur to the mob. It occurs to the mob to riot in but just to push the police, not to harm them, and I mean not to beat them or try to kill them. They're
Mhm.
just pushing them back, and not to take anything by force. Very interesting to me.
Mhm. It's almost like they don't have any respect or value themselves as human beings. Like they just accept where they are, and they, not that they don't try to better themselves, but it's just like, this is the way life is. We're going to live in this church forever. Um, and another thing that stuck out to me, the way that Thorne gets into the church is he basically unties a child from their dead mother and
Mm,
brings him into a nun, or her into a nun.
mm,
And it's just like, oh yeah, this kid's parent is dead. I'm just gonna give him to the nun.
right,
Like
right.
there's no emotion. It's, you don't even see Thorne's face. You just see the dead mother on the street, the child tied with the rope. You see Heston's hand untie the child and bring it in the church. Like there is not a lot of emotion. There's not a lot of, oh my gosh, this is the condition of life now. It's just like, this is the way it is.
Right. So, are we allowed to give away the end of the big reveal at the end?
Well, I mean, it's going to happen in 2 years, so.
Oh, well, so as a warning. So yeah, this whole show is about how we should have seen things coming. So, um, it's interesting to me, given the things we've just said, the loss of hope, that the film ends with Thorne sharing what he has found out with others, with his supervisor, and yelling that he has discovered that, in fact, the world's oceans are dying and there is no plankton. Soylent Green is not made of plankton. It's made of something else. And I gotta wonder, who cares? If you
Right.
in that context, if you aren't going to fight back for yourself, who cares what your food is made out of? And that what was interesting to me. Where does this character get the, I don't know, self-awareness or the morality even to be disturbed by what he has discovered?
Mm-hmm. I think one of the influences on him that could have helped him to understand that was Saul.
Mm.
I don't think other people had that same relationship. They didn't have a sidekick that told them the way that life used to be and how it was different. So that could be why. And then the movie just ends. Like, there is no reaction from anyone around him when he yells his truth. And then it's just like cut to scene, cut credits.
That's sad.
It is.
Hey, by the way, New York, get on it if you're gonna have the. You're only about a quarter of the way there.
Make some Soylent.
I meant the population of the city.
My bad.
Yeah, very interesting.
Well, I'm ready to do final. What do we call it?
Final thoughts. Give it to us.
I will say that this film was not one that I felt took a lot of time. In some parts, it is like an older movie where it builds up a plot slowly. But I was also watching this with a very whiny, almost 1-year-old, and I was still entertained.
Oh, wow. Good one.
I really enjoyed the beginning montage when they show like the turn of the century to the 70s, and then the condition that New York City is in. It kind of shocked me to see like there was a lot of pollution, and then they showed people wearing face masks, and it kind of not triggered me, but it was just very similar to our current situation.
Right.
And I also want to say that this is probably the most diverse movie that we have screened so far. I really liked that they had a variety of people represented in this film, and I really appreciated that. I didn't like that there weren't any strong women. Again,
right.
The women fought back, but that's like a classic 70s thing, in my opinion.
Right. So for me, the connection I would make is just this. We've talked about this, the loss of hope. That if you fully rob people of hope, then they won't fight back. And in many of the dystopias we've looked at, there have been different mechanisms for controlling the population, for maintaining order. By the way, in this, so there's the political system is almost invisible in this movie. There's a police force, very little discussion about political leadership, but it appears that the makers of Soylent Green, the board, is very powerful, if not the center of power. But hopelessness seems to be what the source of power, and that I think, in a way, is more sad, more difficult to contemplate than a future, or a possible future, that is more violent or more actively oppressive. Speaking of more violent, next Tuesday evening, we turn our attention to a book you have almost certainly heard of, Lord of the Flies. This has something for everyone, particularly if what you're looking for is young children run amok under the right circumstances. If you doubt the ability of humans to make the absolute wrong decision, even if they're young, you need to read Lord of the Flies and join our conversation.
Yes.
Next Tuesday at 8 p.m.
Yes. And then on tap next Friday, a week from today, We have A Handmaid's Tale.
Under his eye.
Mm.
I will be. Ooh, I need to catch up with the current season. I finished the last season, but I haven't watched the current. Are you're reading the book though, right?
Mm-hmm. I might watch season 1 by then.
Okay, all right.
I've got really hooked on Broadchurch.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good.
Okay. Well, I certainly recommend the show. I've not read the book, but so I will be basing my commentary on the show. All right, friends.
Alrighty. Thanks for tuning in.
Next time.